Winning ways. The women's basketball team is on a 3-game win streak going into this week.
And cooling off, it's still early in the season, but the men's basketball team has been going through a lull.
And going, gone, our very own Nicole Pampina bids Sideline farewell in this, her last hosting episode.
It's time to come on down to the Pioneer Sideline. Good evening and welcome to the Pioneer Sideline. I'm Nicole Pampina.
And I'm Allison Schubert. First up for our last episode before winter break, we bring in Kiera Fry to talk cross-country nationals. Kiera, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So, start us off, let us know how the men's team did.
So, unfortunately, the men's team didn't qualify for a bid to nationals, but Xavier Stevens and Brody Carlin both went to nationals to represent Point Park University. They did pretty well. Stevens, this is his third time at nationals since being at Point Park University, and this national performance was actually his best. He had his best placement this year. He ranked 84th out of the 335 runners that was there, and he ran a pretty good time of 26:17. And Brody Carlin, only a sophomore, he finally got a first taste of competing at a really high level at nationals, and he did pretty well as well. He had a time of 27:37. He placed 6th among the River States Conference runners that were at nationals and 239th out of all of them.
Now on the women's side, how did they do?
The women did pretty well as well, a lot better as a team. So they placed 27th out of the 37 teams that were competing at nationals, which was pretty good for them. Last year they finished 18th, but we've lost a lot of seniors that had pretty good times since then. Alyssa Campbell really stood out. She placed 29th out of all 341 runners that were there.
Now, going back to some runners that stand out, going back to Stevens, to be specific. Now, at the RSC meet at Shenley Park, he placed number 3, but he led the RSC runners at nationals. So, I mean, what does that say about him as a runner and how his performance that he had?
I think everyone that competed at nationals, they did a lot of really good training leading up to the national performance. And for Stevens specifically, I think being a senior, this being his third time at nationals, he kind of knew what to expect, and he really pushed himself in preparing for nationals to do well, and it definitely paid off because, like I said, he had his best placement this year.
Were you pleased with the results, or were you expecting more or less? How did you think they were going to do compared to how they did?
I think they were pretty on track with what I was expecting. I thought that the women could have done a little bit better, but Reba Bartram had a really good performance. She had her personal best, but the next 3 in the women's top 5, they've had better times throughout the season, so I was expecting them to perform a little bit better, which might have moved the women up a little bit in the ranks, but they were pretty on par with what they've been doing this season.
Now, looking ahead, what's on the horizon for cross country in the future?
So cross country is going to be taking a break right now. A lot of the cross country runners are also on the track team, and track is starting to get into season with the first indoor track meet coming up, and then they'll be back in season in the spring.
All right, thank you, Kiera. When we return, our basketball teams were very busy over the break.
How they fared coming up after this.
All right, go. Go to our new website, uview.pointpark.edu. Go, 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 go.
Join U-View and find your herd.
Join EOP. And 3, 2, join EOP.
I was just saying, grab them now, or else I will snap.
Yeah.
Join on point with politics. 3, 2, 1.
Join Pioneer Sideline.
Loneliest number that you'll ever do.
Welcome back. The women's basketball team kept busy over break with 3 non-conference games.
To tell us how they did with their road trip, we bring in Taylor Spirito. Taylor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
So we saw a lot of positive things from the women's team over break. What were some of the highlights?
So you'd be remiss not to mention they won against Bryant and Stratton Rochester 78-72. They won against PSU York 94-58, a bit of a bigger gap there, and a bit of a revenge since they lost against them last time 76-75. A tough loss for the Pioneers. Came back and won it this time around. Like I said, a nice little revenge plot. And then they won against Washington Adventist 67-66. A bit of a buzzer beater on that one, but you know, they rallied on those 3 games, or I shouldn't even say rallied. They just dominated, you know, had great competition with those 3 teams and came out with wins on all sides.
Well, there have been quite a few buzzer beaters this season. How has the team been able to pull those off?
So I specifically want to talk about the 67-66 Washington Adventist game because that one was kind of crazy. Michelle Burns had a 3-pointer to tie the game very late, and then she had a technical free throw to break the tie. Absolutely insane. She's been arguably Point Park's most clutch player over the past few seasons, and it goes to show, you know, the 3 points to tie it, cool. The free throw, absolutely insane. You know, she was definitely the hero of that game, and she's just been continuing to impress all season.
Now, Michelle Burns, I wouldn't even say arguably. I would say she is undoubtedly one of the best players that has come through Point Park, at least in recent years. Who else has been stepping up in addition to Michelle Burns?
So Taylor Kirshner has been absolutely insane for the Pioneers. She's a freshman. We've had our fair share of, you know, women's athletics that feature a freshman named Taylor. We had Taylor Small during volleyball season, and then Taylor Kirshner for the women's basketball team. She had 15 points in the last game. That was the one against Bryant and Stratton Rochester. She had 15 points, and the next person above her was Michelle Burns, sitting at a solid 28. You know, you talk about Michelle Burns being the top player on Point Park's women's team. Taylor Kirshner's got to be giving her a run for her money, or at least is going to be as she continues to grow and prosper with this club.
Taylor's a good name, clearly.
I'd like to think so.
It is. Now, and on the flip side, where are their weak spots, where they need a little bit of work?
So one of the players that I really want to see step up is Carly Lutz. She has had a lot of great success here at Point Park. Last season, she had 159 rebounds on the season. She had 98 points. But this year, right now, 8 games played, she has 34 rebounds. She's on pace for just over 100. And she has 14 points this season. She's on pace for 49, just about 49. She's been underperforming. And for someone who's standing at, I believe it's like 6'3", she's a fairly tall one. She's an upperclassman. She's just been underperforming, and so I would just love to see her kind of fit into the mold that this Point Park women's basketball team has made this season, because right now I don't think she has found her place there. But once she does, I would love to see what she does with it.
Well, thank you, Taylor. Now to flip over to the men's side, you're sticking around with us. They had a little bit of a different result over their break. How was that for them?
So they lost to Malone. That one was a close one. It was 79-76. And then they also lost to Salem University, their NCAA Division II, I believe it is, 93-86. That one not as close as the Malone game, but still a fairly close one. You know, we talk about how the River States Conference is around the same competition level as NCAA Division II. And it goes to show with the competition that team is putting up, both teams equally, but they just couldn't capitalize on it. And it was disappointing to see, especially seeing how well the women did.
Now, the men's team, at least for the past few seasons, have been kind of disappointing, I guess. They aren't really performing as well. They were much better last year with the addition of Joe Lewandowski as their head coach, and they were off to a really solid start this year. They've kind of hit a plateau mark right now, losing those 2 over break. What do you think is happening, and should we be concerned right now?
So, yeah, you talk about how just over the past few seasons it's been just a constant plateau. And the rise started to happen, like you said, they're plateauing again. What I've noticed is that their rallies have fallen short, especially these past 2 games. The Malone game, they were down by 12 points, and they started to trim at that, but they couldn't quite capitalize on it. They couldn't quite get it done, and they fell to them by 3 points, still a loss in the record book. And then they led Salem in the first, but then they fell behind by 18 points in the second. And they started to rally back on that one, but they just couldn't get it. I think that when you start falling behind, you lose that mentality, then that's going to just prove to be toxic for these teams. And those rallies, I should say, have fallen short. I think as it stands right now, they just need to solidify everything that they have going. As soon as you get 1 foot off the gas, then it's just going to completely stop going. And that's what's been happening with this Point Park men's basketball team. So I'd love to see what happens when they go full pedal to the metal and actually, solidify everything that they have.
Now, you answered my next question with what needs to change within this team, but I want to point out that RSC play opens up this Saturday. How is that going to be a new obstacle on top of everything else for them?
So, you talk about how they went against Division II, NCAA Division II Salem. They also have that game coming up, another one against them on Tuesday. Hopefully another revenge plot going on there for the Point Park men's team, I should say. I just think that, they've got some great competition within the River States Conference. They've got Carlo coming up on Saturday. The women do as well. And Carlo's always been proven to be a fun game going and watching them and being on the call for, I know that Allison, you frequent those games. Carlo's always been just a fun one. So I'd love to see, I think that's going to be a test for them, to say the least. I want to see how they do against Carlo, because that's going to set the mood, set the tone for the rest of the River States Conference season.
And I will be on the call for that game, so we'll see after break. We'll keep you guys updated. Thank you so much, Taylor. When we come back, we'll dive into regional and national headlines from the week.
All that and more when we come back.
What's one word to describe CAB?
Welcoming.
Community.
Creative.
Experiences.
Family. Openness.
Pineapple.
The Campus Activities Board is a student-run organization that consists of 7 different committees. Each focuses on event planning, marketing, and administrative activities. Join us in organizing the juiciest events on campus, from late-night bingo to festive dances to our team bonding meetings. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Point Park Cap, or like us on Facebook at Campus Activities Board at Point Park University.
Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. I'm Josh Troop alongside Jess Paterchak.
Defending his decision to kick out 15 Cuban diplomats from the United States.
Thanks, Allison. Fitness on Demand has returned to Point Park.
Residents fear that Mount Agung will have a repeat of 1963's eruption.
2-star NFL quarterbacks made the headlines this week after wrapping up.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. That's your news tonight. For Nick Tomarello, I'm Alex Grubbs. Have a great night.
Welcome back. We've updated you on all the happenings on Point Park sports over break.
And now it's time for an update from the Black and Gold. Colton Tobias joins us in studio to give us the regional headlines from over break. Colton.
Thanks, guys. In what seems like the most bizarre season in recent memory, the Steelers kept their playoff hopes alive by beating the Cleveland Browns 20-13 and avenging their loss to their arch rival 2 weeks prior. The Steelers started the game off slow as Cleveland took a 10-0 lead early. And Steelers quarterback Devlin Duck Hodges led the way as they were able to storm back to tie the game by halftime. The Steelers then took the lead in the fourth quarter, and that dominant Steelers defense sealed the game as Joe Hayden picked off Baker Mayfield as the Steelers improved to 7-5 and will travel to Arizona next week to take on the Cardinals while holding the last wildcard spot in the AFC. Moving over to the ice, the Penguins are currently on a 2-game losing streak with losses against the Columbus Blue Jackets and St. Louis Blues on back-to-back road games from Friday and Saturday. Both scores are identical as the Pens lost 5-2. They now slip to 5th in the Metropolitan Division standings by a point. The Pens continue to fight through an injury-filled season as it was announced recently. Brian Dumoulin will be out for at least 8 weeks after ankle surgery, according to the Trib. The Penguins will be back in action tomorrow night to take on the Blues at home this time. And the Pirates have finally found their skipper. It was announced last week Minnesota Twins bench coach Derek Shelton will become the 46th manager in club history. Shelton was the bench coach in Minnesota for 2 years, and he also spent time coaching with the Blue Jays, Indians, and the Rays. He never had an affiliation with the Pirates organization before getting the job. That's all I have for regional. Now back to the decks with Nicole and Allison.
Thank you, Colton. Transitioning from regional to national, the sports world was heated up over our break.
Jake Berlin joins us in studio now to break it all down. Jake.
Thanks, guys. This week in college football, Ohio State did not give a buckeye as they traveled to Ann Arbor and took down the Wolverines 56-27. Rival Michigan now faces familiar questions and scrutiny surrounding head coach Jim Harbaugh after his loss at home to the first-year coach from Columbus, Ryan Day. At his post-game press conference, Harbaugh told reporter Jordan Strack that he was insulted by a question regarding the gap between the Michigan and Ohio State football teams. And Georgia will face number 2 LSU, led by Heisman favorite quarterback Joe Burrow, in the SEC championship game this weekend. That game will take place at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Now, if LSU wins and continues their undefeated streak this season, they have a 99.9% chance of making the college football playoff, according to ESPN's playoff predictor. Ohio State and Clemson were given similar odds. Utah and Oregon will play in the Pac-12 championship, while Baylor and Oklahoma will compete in the Big 12 championship. And Virginia has earned itself a spot in the ACC championship. The Sun Belt championship game is Louisiana versus number 25 Appalachian State in North Carolina. But perhaps the biggest story in the college football universe this week was Auburn's upset of Alabama, which continued their ranked winning streak at home against their rival from Tuscaloosa. 48-45 was the final score as the game ended on a penalty for too many men on the field, with a visibly frustrated Nick Saban tossing his headset in yet another Iron Bowl defeat. And finally, college basketball is in full force this week as the season picks up its pace, with Rutgers playing here in Pittsburgh tonight. That's it for national news. Back to Nicole and Allison at the desk.
Thanks, Jake. After the break, we'll be switching things up.
I am going to turn the tables and interview our very own Nicole Pampina on post-grad life after this.
The United Student Government at Point Park University, working since the 1970s to solve the issues that matter to you. What concerns do you have about the university? Student life, safety, food service? Send us an email to studentconcerns@pointpark.edu or stop by our office on the 7th floor of the Student Center. You can also attend our weekly open meetings on Mondays at 3:15. Follow us on social media at USG_PPU for more. The United Student Government, by the students, for the students.
The Point Park Sports Network, bringing you live coverage of Pioneer Athletics on Stretch Internet, the home of the River States Conference and the NAIA. Subscribe today for complete access to the Point Park volleyball, baseball, basketball, and soccer teams. Watch live and on-demand broadcasts and don't miss a minute of Point Park Athletics. Head to pointparksports.com/live for broadcast listings. The Point Park Sports Network, your streaming home for Point Park Athletics.
3, 2, 1.
Please visit our website. Please, it's a nice website. Please visit our website. Please.
If you have ever watched television, whether accidentally or on purpose, U-View is for you.
Welcome back to Sideline.
Normally, this is where we would do a case of the week, but don't worry, it will be returning next semester. But this week, I wanted to get the chance to tell Nicole's story since this is her last ever episode of Sideline. But before we get to asking questions, Cam Wilson, our TD and fellow producer of mine, has made a video for you. So let's watch her.
Go. Go to our new website, uview.pointpark.edu.
So it's really hard to pick a favorite memory that I've had with Nicole just because every time I see her and every time I talk to her, she always says something that's just like so funny and like something that nobody else would say, and she always catches you off guard, and she always just has like She thinks she's cynical sometimes, but I think she just has like a different way of looking at things, and it always comes out like really funny, and I love that about her.
So my favorite memory with Nicole has to be when we had Gina's on camera together last fall. We got really close as a big group of us, like me, Nicole, Cole, Nick, and Kiera. But I remember first becoming friends with Nicole during that class and just being like, how can someone as amazing as Nicole like want to be friends with me? And just throughout that class and since then, we've joked around a lot, had a great time. We went to New York City and hung out a little bit, so.
She was helping out during Welcome Week for the honors program, and we were doing like a little scavenger hunt in which we were separated into groups, and then we had to go explore a certain part of the city. And Nicole was our leader, and I went around Mount Washington for about, say about a half hour looking for Nicole. That was probably my favorite memory, and I really didn't even know her that well at the time too, and I think that's what makes it a lot more funny.
Was that one time that we went to Italy, and it was a torrential downpour raining in Rome, and then one of the other girls that we were with decided that she was gonna take us to this pizza place through her GPS, and she set it for driving directions instead of walking. So it took us like a whole half hour to get there in a pouring down rainstorm, and I was just a drowned puppy dog, and Nicole Pampina was there to comfort me and make sure that I knew everything was gonna be okay.
Every memory with Nicole is my favorite memory. She's just great.
She always comes in and has a good time at U-View, and she makes the environment like a really positive place that you want to be.
Like if it weren't for her, I don't think that I would be in a lot of the positions that I'm in to succeed right now. So I owe her a lot, actually. I owe her a lot.
Well, Nicole, you know I love you. You have been such a great mentor to me over these past 2 years. You know, you're just so much fun to be around, and I am truly going to miss you.
Saying goodbye to Nicole is gonna be really hard because I love you, Nicole.
No, but I'm really gonna miss you, and Point Park is not gonna feel like Point Park without you. So I know that you're right down the road, so feel free to come and visit anytime. There's always a place for you at U-View and at Point Park in general. And please don't be a stranger. Let's go out and get drinks and have fun. And I love you, and I'm gonna miss you so much.
Marie, you're gonna go far, kid.
You can count yourself in whenever.
Oh, count myself in. Okay, cool. All right, are you good?
Mm-hmm.
5, 4, 3. It's a miracle I know how to count. I don't want to cry yet.
I was tearing up during that.
I'm tearing up. Yeah. Oh God.
The annual.
Yikes.
Go ahead.
I need both my eyes.
Why are you hitting me with them? She's the senior.
Oh gosh, destroy me. Get wrecked. Pew. I'm so sorry.
Nicole, we heard some of your peers' favorite memories. What have been some of your favorite memories?
Oh my God, that's been such a hard thing, like with all this like senior stuff. It's because I have so many. Like 3.5 years is so long, but it's not. And like I'll always remember like that first semester of Sideline because I was like print. I'm a journalist at age. I'm not broadcasting. Everyone thinks I'm broadcast production. And that's where I like fell in love with television. That's like why I want to work in television now. And like Jess Paterchak's here today, and she was like my role model, and she was floor directing that day, and she showed me how to use a camera, and like that is where I was like, these people are so cool, and this is so exciting, and it was like this new thing. That and like election night, like both of them, because that was just like that was like some of the best stuff that Point Park's done, I think, especially like the 2016 one. That was like all new because I was a freshman, and then I ended up like producing the 2018 one, which was like still one of my biggest accomplishments at Point Park. And just like everyone coming together and like supporting each other and working so hard for like this one thing was so amazing. But like that's U-View alone. There's so many other ones too.
Well, you've been one of my best friends here, so I am definitely going to miss you, and I don't know who is going to sit at this desk with me next semester, but you are more than welcome to come back literally anytime and host.
Thank you. Oh yeah, and host.
And host. By yourself, with me, I don't care what you do, but you're more than welcome to come back and host.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that you found your family here at Sideline.
Thank you.
We're going to hug now.
We're going to hug it out.
Nicole, would you like to take us out?
I would. So join us, or not me, but join Allison next semester at the same Pioneer time.
The same Pioneer channel.
And the same Pioneer Sideline.